So, here we are, August 17th, 2016, and as you can see, the headline reads, Trump overhauls campaign team. So there's been a big shakeup in Trump land. And the thing you hear people keep asking is, here's his new reset. Is he going to reset? And I'll tell you what I've told you from the start. No, he's not. Trump is not going to change. Trump will be Trump up until November. He is at least proven to me that he is incapable of changing. Here's a big shakeup in Trump land. He's behind in the polls, and there's going to be a big Trump reset. And I give it till next Wednesday. Today is August 17th. I give him till next Wednesday. By next Wednesday, there will be a new Trump dust-up, a new self-inflicted wound caused by Donald Trump, given to Donald Trump, where, who knows, maybe this weekend he'll get in a Twitter war with Patton Oswalt, or, he'll come out with some new outrageous statement that blows up in his face. Who knows? But he's proven to me that he is incapable of staying on a straight path when it comes to this campaign, and I do not see him ever doing it. That said, getting back to the subject at hand, we were talking about negative campaigning and negative ads. And that's going to be a big thing because this campaign is already pretty negative, and it is going to get almost unimaginably negative by the time November rolls around. So now the question we were asking is, what is effective negative campaigning and why do people always use it? Well, they always use it for a simple reason. It works. Negative campaigns work. Negative ads work and negative campaigns work. They are effective. But they are only effective if they have two key ingredients. They have to be, the negative attacks on your opponent have to be plausible, not necessarily true, but plausible, believable, and they have to be relevant. They have to be important to the voter in that particular election. Now, those seem like no-brainers, but in the past, there have been negative campaigns that did not have one or two of those components and consequently did not really work. Now, I'll give you one example. I'll give you two examples, actually. But starting with the first example, if you remember the campaign of John Kerry versus George W. Now, there was a whole contingency of people on the far left, and the left, but most of the far left, who really saw George W. as this really terrible, war criminal, and he's Adolf Hitler. And they really had this caricature in their mind of George W. Now, they believed this caricature, and they used that in their negative campaigning against George Bush. The problem is, while that caricature was real to them, it was not a plausible interpretation of George W. himself, and hence the negative campaign was ineffective. What do I mean? I mean that George W., to them, he was this warmonger, this war criminal. He was Adolf Hitler. He was a crazy man. He was a lunatic. But the problem was it was undercut by the reality of his actual persona. You can say what you want about George W., but he's a pretty genial frat guy. He's a pretty basically likable guy. And, you could the thing that became a big deal in that election was, would you sit down and have a beer with him? And everybody could see themselves sit down and enjoying his company, having a beer with him, because he was a pretty down-to-earth, likable guy. Hence, he undercut the negative campaign against him. So it was not completely plausible. It read like a caricature and actually wound up in some ways helping him, because you would hear this crazy war criminal and, people would be foaming at the mouth, and then you'd see this genial frat guy, and the two did not match. Take, for example, Dick Cheney. Now, if he'd been on the top of the ticket, the war criminal psychopath thing would have had a lot more resonance, because it was a lot more plausible given the type of character that guy was. Now, go to the second example. The second example was Bill Clinton when he ran the second time. The big attack, and probably the only negative attack against him, but at least the main one, was that he didn't have the character to be president of the United States. And the main argument for it was, he had cheated on his wife. Now, not only was it plausible, it was completely and utterly true. He did cheat on his wife. Everybody knew he cheated on his wife. And that, in some ways, is really bad character. It's a really horrible thing to do. So why didn't that work? Because it's not relevant. It wasn't relevant to the voters. That had already been factored in. Whatever you thought about Bill Clinton, you had already factored in the fact that he cheated on his wife and he was not a good husband, and you weren't voting based on that. So there's only so much damage that character, that line of attack would do there's only so much that would do to influence your decision making, because